I saw Nathan, my father, in the same block as a whorehouse. And I'm pretty sure that he went in there or came out of there. A very apocryphal story.
Mm-hmm.
No one in the family had the good sense to say, what the hell were you doing right there?
And knowing that was a whorehouse.
Yeah. Anyway, and there was some question about the finances. And finally, my father and mother broke up. My mother adored my father. My father adored my mother. And they stayed in love for many, many years, even when they each married somebody else. It was kind of a very sad story.
Mm-hmm. Tragic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember your mother marrying Uncle Aaron.
No, didn't marry Uncle Aaron.
Oh,
Married Ben Black.
Ben Black. Uncle Aaron was your father's brother.
Yeah.
And do you remember? Was this? Were you old enough to know that this was going on?
Oh, about the whorehouse business?
No, just to know Nat and to know.
I remember infrequently meeting Marty's father, but hearing negative stories about him from my mother,
Yeah.
about finances and so on.
Because there was a Beeland, I mean, almost like a curse, is what you're saying.
Yes.
The Beelands had kind of cursed the union, and drove Nat away.
I think so, and I never understood, because they had such good feelings about them. I mean, my mother and father. What it was that they didn't have they had the strength to get a divorce, which was unusual in those days, but not the strength to fight to keep the union.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot I don't know.
And did you? There was a long period. You were raised by a single mother for an extended period of time until your mom remarried.
Yeah.
Did she remarry when you were still a child, or had you grown up?
No, she remarried when I was a teenager, out here.
Okay.
Yeah, no, she had kind of a platonic relationship with someone named Ira Weber. Do you remember him?
Yes, I do.
He was a lovely man. He was the brother of a cousin of hers. But there was nothing sexual involved.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, Aaron had moved in to our apartment on Andrews Avenue. We had moved from Popham Avenue to Andrews Avenue. In those days, in the Depression, you would rent an apartment and get 1 month free rent. So I would come home from school, and do you remember the barrels? There'd be these big wooden barrels, and they were being packed with your kitchen things, your pots, your pans, your clothing, because you knew you had to move. So 1 month out of every year, we kind of moved. And you could move from 1A to 3B in the same building. And that still would constitute a move. But when we moved to Andrews Avenue, I don't know exactly, but I believe my Uncle Aaron needed a place to live. And my mother rented a room to him. Nothing romantic. He looked like Jimmy Durante.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a great laugh, so that was kind of good.
And Mom, before you came out here when you were 12, in your experience of the Bronx and of Popham Avenue, like what do you remember of that era? I'm guessing Marty reminds me it's the Depression. I mean, you were born in 1924. The Depression
1929.
started in 1929, so you were became a conscious person right in the midst of the Depression. Like, what was it like? What do you remember of that? Those years you were in the Bronx, or what are the vivid memories that you have?
Well, I remember the kids playing out on the street, stickball from obviously my brother. All the kids. There were always tons of kids to play with. And you were gone from the house all day. I mean, your mother didn't see you from early in the morning to late in the afternoon. There were plenty of things to do. And you were very free. There was no supervision. I don't remember anybody being worried about me.
And do you think that's because you had an absentee mother, or do you think that was because just the whole neighborhood vibe was one where it was relatively safe and kids were all living in such close proximity that it was a community?
It was a combination of those things. My mother was working, but we were all at each other's apartments, so I knew my friends' parents.
Mm-hmm.
It just was, I don't know about joyful, because I didn't have a happy family life in terms of a father, normal life. But I remember enjoying playing outside, having tons of friends, and going to University Avenue, which was a little fancier section, and going with my girlfriends and going to the stores and trying to take a few things when nobody was looking.
Steal?
Remember Rushmeyer's?
Oh yeah, ice cream parlor.
An ice cream parlor.
And how were you Jewish identified, or was the neighborhood a Jewish neighborhood?
You speak to that.
I have perhaps a false memory that Popham Avenue was predominantly Jewish. The next street down, and I forget, it wasn't Andrews Avenue, I think was mixed between Catholics and Irish, and I remember getting beating up when we would confront each other, or there were bullies that took place.
And New York has a gritty vibe to it. When you were a kid, before you came out here, do you remember it in a gritty way as well, in terms of being careful or being scared on the street as a kid, or needing to be watchful?
I don't remember that.
Oh, our street, Popham Avenue, was, I think, I don't know, you'd say affluent, but it was not a run-down Bronx neighborhood. It was a nice neighborhood. We had a fairly new apartment house, new apartments, and
How did they manage all that?
I think my grandfather must have helped my mother at some point.
Oh, I
know he helped your mother.
Yeah, I think that the grandfather seeded monies or kind of monthly incomes, or whatever you want to call it, to all of them. But I do remember by that time, the older brothers, like Eddie was the oldest,
And Chick, yeah.
and then Chick and Brett,
Right.
they already had been in business. Chick was a lawyer.
Eddie owned a string of people had to rent places for cars in New York in those days.
Yeah, he had a
And
garage.
He had a garage, 2 or 3 garages.
Yeah. And Brett had first he had a band, I remember.
Yeah.
I have no idea beyond the fact that he had a band. But then, after that, the only thing I knew was he was in California in the insurance and automobile business.
And so you're
He lived with your mother, rented, or just lived with your mother for quite a while too.
so the Beelin grandfather he was Beelin. This is the Beelin side of the family. He had 6 kids, both of your parents. So who you refer to as Annie, Dot,
Sally,
Sally,
Chick, Brett, and
Ed,
Eddie.
And what was the order of them in age?
Eddie was the oldest. After Eddie, I think it was Sally. No, couldn't be, because Pauline always argued about that. It would be Chick. No, it would be Eddie, Annie. Yeah, okay, it would be Eddie and Annie. And then Sally, I think. And then Chick. And Brett was the youngest, I think, of that.
I remember there was a chair, family portrait, a chair with a book that was supposed to be Brett before he was born.
Oh, yes, and he had like a little sailor suit or something
Yeah.
like that.
And the grandpa